Happy Friday night. I don't know if I told you guys already, but my friends are gone for Cleveland, so no more going out on the weekends, just on my lonesome, which is good. But also, will be nice to have the boys here on the weekends, but unfortunately, that is not the case for the next 6 months. What? Anyways, let's do some damage on this book. Freedom or death on a decision. The value of decision depends upon the courage required to make them. The great decisions which served as the foundation of civilization were reached by assuming great risks, which often meant the possibility of death. Lincoln's decision to issue his famous Proclamation of Emancipation, which gave freedom to the enslaved people of America, was taken with full understanding that his act would turn thousands of friends and political supporters against him. He knew too that the carrying out of that proclamation would mean death to thousands of men on the battlefield in the end, and cost Lincoln his life. That required courage. Socrates' decision to drink the cup of poison rather than compromise in his personal belief was a decision of courage. It turned time ahead 1,000 years and gave to people then unborn the right to freedom of thought and of speech. The decision of General Robert E. Lee, when he came to the parting of the way with the Union and took up the cause of the South, was one of courage. For he knew it might cost him his own life, and that it would surely cost the lives of others. But the greatest decision of all time, as far as any American citizen is concerned, was reached in Philadelphia on July 4th, 1974, when 56 men signed their names to a document they well knew would bring freedom to all Americans, or leave every one of the 56 hanging from a gallows. You have heard of this famous document, but you may not have drawn from it the great lesson in personal achievement it is so plainly taught. We all remember the date of this momentous decision, but few of us realize what courage that decision required. We remember history as it was taught. We remember dates and the names of the men who fought. We remember Valley Forge and Yorktown. We remember George Washington and Lord Cornwallis. But we know little of the real forces behind these names, dates, and places. We know still less of that intangible power which guaranteed freedom for Americans long before Washington's armies reached Yorktown. We read the history of the Revolution and falsely imagined that George Washington was the father of America, that it was he who won Americans their freedom. The truth is that Washington was only an accessory after the fact. Because victory for his armies had been assured long before Lord Cornwallis surrendered. This is not intended to rob Washington of any of the glory he so richly merited. Its purpose, rather, it is to give greater attention to the astounding power that was the real cause of his victory. It is nothing short of tragedy that the writers of history have entirely missed even the slightest reference to the irresistible power that gave birth and freedom to the nation destined to set up new standards of independence for all the peoples of the earth. I say it is tragedy because it is the same power that must be used by every individual who surmounts the difficulties of life and forces life to pay the price asked. Let us briefly review the events that gave birth to this power. The story begins with an incident in Boston on March 5th, 1970. British soldiers were patrolling the streets, openly threatening the citizens by their presence. The colonists resented armed men marching in their midst. They began to express their resentment openly, hurling stones as well as epithets at the marching soldiers until the commanding officer gave orders fixed by its charge. That battle was on. It resulted in the death and injury of many. The incident arose such resentment that the Provincial Assembly, made of a prominent colonists, called a meeting for the purpose of taking defiant action. Two of the members of the assembly were John Hancock and Samuel Adams. They spoke up courageously and declared that a move must be made to eject all British soldiers from Boston. Remember this, a decision in the minds of two men might probably be called the beginning of the freedom that Americans now enjoy. Remember, too, that the decision of these two men called for faith and courage because it was dangerous. Before the assembly adjourned, Samuel Adams was appointed to call on the governor of the province, Hutchinson, and demand the withdrawal of British troops. The request was granted and the troops were removed from Boston, but the incident was not closed. It had caused a situation destined to change the entire trend of civilization. Strange is it not, how the great changes such as the American Revolution and many wars often have their beginnings in circumstances which seem unimportant. It is interesting also to observe that these important changes usually begin in the form of a defiant decision in the minds of a relatively small number of people. Few of us know the history of America well enough to realize that John Hancock, Samuel Adams, and Richard Henry Lee of the province of Virginia were the real fathers of the country. Richard Henry Lee became an important factor in this history due to the fact that he and Samuel Adams communicated frequently by correspondence, sharing freely their fears and their hopes of concerns the welfare of the people of the provinces. From this practice, Adams convinced the idea that a mutual exchange of letters between the 13 colonies might help to bring the coordination of efforts so badly needed in connection with the solution of the problems. In March 1772, 2 years after the clash with the soldiers in Boston, Adams presented this idea to the Assembly in the form of a motion that a correspondence committee he established among the colonies, with definitely appointed correspondents in each colony, for the purpose of friendly cooperation for the betterment of the colonies of British America. Mark well this incident. It was the beginning of the organization of the far-flung power destined to give freedom to Americans. The mastermind had already been organized. It consisted of Adams, Lee, and Hancock, and the Committee of Correspondence was organized. Observe that this move provided the way for increasing the power of the mastermind by adding to it men from all the colonies. Take notice that this procedure constituted the first organized planning of the disgruntled colonists. In union there is strength. The citizens of the colonies had been waging disorganized warfare against the British soldiers through incidents similar to the Boston riot, but nothing of benefit had been accomplished. Their individual grievances had not been consolidated under one mastermind. No group of individuals had put their hearts, minds, souls, and bodies together in one defiant decision to settle the difficulty with the British once and for all, until Adams, Hancock, and Lee got together. Meanwhile, the British were not idle. They too were doing some planning and masterminding on their own account, with the advantage of having money and organized soldiery behind them. The Crown appointed Gage to supplant Hutchinson as the governor of Massachusetts. One of the new governor's first acts was to send a messenger to call on Samuel Adams for the purpose of endeavoring to stop his opposition by fear. We can best understand the spirit of what happened by quoting the conversation between Colonel Fenton, the messenger sent by Gage, and Adams. Colonel Fenton, I had been authorized by Governor Gage to assure you, Mr. Adams, that the governor has been empowered to confer upon you such benefits as would be satisfactory in endeavor to win Adams by promise of bribes, upon the condition that you encourage to cease in your opposition to the measures of the government. It is the governor's advice to you, sir, not to incur the further displeasure of his majesty. Your conduct has been such as makes you liable to penalties of an act of Henry, whatever, by which persons can be sent to England for trial, for treason or misposition of treason at the discretion of a governor of a province. But by changing your political course, you will not only receive great personal advantages, but you will make your peace with the king. Samuel Adams had the choice of two decisions. He could seize his opposition and receive personal bribes, or he could continue and run the risk of being hanged. Clearly, the time had come when Adams was forced to reach instantly a decision that could have cost his life. The majority of people would have found it difficult to reach such a decision. The majority would have sent back an evasive reply, but not Adams. He insisted Colonel Fenton gave his word of honor to deliver to the governor, and the answer exactly as Adams gave it to him. Adams' answer was, then you may tell Governor Gage that I trust I have long since made my peace with the King of Kings. No personal consideration shall induce me to abandon the righteous cause of my country. And tell Governor Gage it is the advice of Samuel Adams to him no longer to insult the feelings of an exasperated people. Comment as to the character of this man seems unnecessary. It must be obvious to all who read this astounding message that its sender possessed loyalty of the highest order. This is important. Racketeers and dishonest politicians have prostituted the honor for which such men as Adams died. When Governor Gage received Adams' caustic reply, he flew into a rage and issued a proclamation which read, I do hereby in His Majesty's name offer and promise His most gracious pardon to all persons who shall forthwith lay down their arms and return to the duties of peaceful subjects, exceptly only from the benefit of such pardon. Samuel Adams and John Hancock, whose offenses are of too flagitious a nature to admit of any other consideration but that of conjugate punishment. I'll take a pause there. We're just into a storyline of Samuel Adams, John Hancock, and Robert Henry Lee about the vision that they had for the country a long time ago, way past my time. So we'll continue that in the next video /episode/reading. Let's go.